got the explanation and the discussion with Peter Schaffer, the agent for Randy Gregory. What happened here, Mike?
Well, this is very simple. The Cowboys use language in their contracts for everyone except Dak Prescott that goes beyond what the CBA requires. You can go farther than the standard language. And teams typically will put language in deals that will wipe out future guaranteed money if someone is suspended. And that can be a powerful tool, especially in the Randy Gregory contract, because the way it's structured with Denver, he's got $14 million next year that's fully guaranteed. If that gets wiped out and if he has a bad year, you can just cut him. That's why guaranteed salaries in future years are useful for players. They're insurance against having a bad year. One of the reasons Ezekiel Elliott's still on the Cowboys. The way his contract was structured, guarantee after guarantee after guarantee, his money this year is guaranteed. What are we going to do? We're paying him anyway. We're not just going to cut him. We're still going to pay him, so we may as well have him on the team. Not that he doesn't belong on the team, but if he didn't have a huge guaranteed salary for this year, they would have cut him before they paid him, or they would have traded him away like they did with Amari Cooper. What the Cowboys do is they wipe out guarantees based upon even a fine under, for example, and relevant to Randy Gregory, the substance abuse policy. This guy has a long history of suspensions under the substance abuse policy. I've been on record for years saying the NFL shouldn't care if guys smoke marijuana or otherwise use non-PEDs in their own time. It shouldn't matter. They're on their own time for 7 months out of the year. Why does the NFL care? Well, they do, and it's one of the rules. But if the Cowboys are going to hinge $14 million next year on Randy Gregory not getting fined a single time under the substance abuse policy, and then if he slips this year, and next year they can clear a quick $14 million under the cap by dumping him, he's in danger. So it was important to Gregory to not have that clause in there. And Schaffer said he gave the Cowboys an opportunity to wipe that clause out, and Gregory would have stayed with the Cowboys. Instead, they declined to do it, so he took the deal with the Broncos, who don't have that language. You know, so many teams will say, well, that's how we do business. That's how we do business. I've seen the apologists today saying, well, the Cowboys do that for everyone, except for Dak Prescott. But they do that for everyone. Well, you don't have to. Nothing requires you to do it. It's not some CBA mandate that be in there. And when you have those kind of hard and fast rules, that's what causes you to potentially lose guys to other teams that don't.
So they're the only team in the league with that fine language in there about the fines.
That's my understanding. They're the only ones who do it. And all that matters for these purposes is the Broncos don't.
Yeah.
The Broncos don't. The Cowboys do. The Cowboys had a chance to take it out for Gregory. And, you get teams caught up in this idea of, well, we can't start setting these precedents. Well, okay, then you lose the player.
Well, Mike, do you think that they snuck this in? That's the accusation that they tried to sneak this in the 11th hour. Do you believe that?
Well, one of the things that Schaffer said is that
because one thing to have an outdated policy or provision, and it's another, right, to try to, while you're signing pen to paper, say, oh, yeah, and there's this.
It's not that it was snuck in. It was at the 11th hour. It was Randy Gregory's getting ready to go to the Broncos. Jerry gets involved and talks him into staying, and he agrees to spurn the Broncos and stay with the Cowboys. Then comes the contract, and specific to Gregory, this fine language is a concern. I don't think it was necessarily slipped in. It's just there. Now, Schaffer claims he was told they use it for everyone, so when Schaffer finds out they don't use it for Dak Prescott, that's like, well, come on, you're not being completely honest with me here. And I think there's another question about whether or not Stephen Jones had previously said to Schaffer, we're going to have our standard forfeiture language in any contract we do with Randy Gregory. There's a discrepancy over whether that conversation ever happened. So the bottom line is, regardless of how they got there was a chance, there was an opportunity at the end of the road for the Cowboys to say, we understand your concerns, we're going to remove the language, and they chose not to do it. And when that happened, Gregory went to Denver, where that language isn't part of the contract.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, join us here, 105 through the Fan. Is it the Cowboys' obligation to, if they have something in their contracts that is outside the industry standard, is it their obligation to be upfront about that and not just have it in there and hope you see it?
Well, now, I don't know that it's their obligation. No, because it's the obligation of the agent to read it. I don't think having that in there as standard language is a problem. Now, if you start telling agents we do it for everyone, but the truth is that you don't, that's going to piss people off, potentially, because you've made an exception for Dak Prescott. So if you made an exception for Dak Prescott, you can make an exception for Randy Gregory, who's had well-documented issues under a policy that shouldn't exist. And Jerry has argued in the past that the NFL shouldn't care about marijuana, that there shouldn't be a substance abuse policy at all. So he should understand that the risk of a fine is always there, that the risk of a problem is always there. And once that happens, you give the Cowboys the hammer to get out from under the guaranteed money in 2023. That's what it's all about. It's about the preserving the $14 million that Randy Gregory will definitely earn with the Broncos unless he's suspended, but would have jeopardized with the Cowboys if he had simply been fined.
Mike, the Cowboys are telling local reporters we would have been willing to change it, and we don't even enforce that anyway. Do you believe that, or do you believe Schaffer?
Well, I don't know what to believe. All I know is Schaffer's on the record. Now, who's on the record from the Cowboys saying we would have changed it? Is Jerry on the record saying it?
No.
Is Steven on the record saying it?
No.
When somebody's on the record saying it, and I'm always, with that self-serving stuff, and I understand there's competition and you want to get the story out, but when there's something self-serving like that is aimed to contradict somebody who's on the record, I'll tell the source, you got to go on the record before. I'm not going to carry your water on this. I'm not going to push your BS. You go on the record and say it. And then the reporting will be one side's on the record saying yes, one side's on the record saying no. But yeah, I mean they had a chance to change it, and that's my understanding. And they chose not to, and that's their choice.